Tonight on this very warm evening, St. Joseph Museums really appreciate you being here. We are honored to have Jerry and Mike Robertson, who have been working very diligently on the Eden Hill Cemetery, and they're going to tell us what they've been doing. So, thank you.
Appreciate that. Well, good evening, everyone. We appreciate you. She said on this side. We always like to start out, how many people here have a connection to the cemetery? That was you. There's a few did, so great. Well, you can help us fill in any gaps that we have, but we hope you'll learn something tonight. So Mike and I would like to share with you how our ancestral connection with the cemetery and why we decided to establish the King Hill Cemetery Restoration and Preservation Association. We cleaned up a little bit today, but on any given day, this is how we usually look. We're usually 2 or 3 days a week, we're at the cemetery, and we're either clearing brush or cutting grass or cleaning tombstones. Just you name it, we jump in and do it. And we have become very close acquaintances with the folks that are buried at the King Hill Cemetery. Mike and I were both born and raised here in St. Joe. We got married here. We had our 2 children here. And we moved away for a while, but we've come home to roost and work in the King Hill Cemetery. Mike's 4 times great-grandfather, John Robertson, and his second wife, Sarah, are both laid to rest at the King Hill Cemetery. They both died in February of 1845, 6 days apart. We don't know why, but they both died then. It was the Robertson family genealogy that led us to the King Hill Cemetery. And the more time we spent at the cemetery, the more time that we wanted to actually learn the history of the cemetery and how it came to be. But before we started, and this is true for any of you, no matter what cemetery you might choose to work at, before we started recovery and restoration work, we gained the permission of Doug Shepard, who is the current president and manager of the new King Hill Cemetery Association. And after exhaustive research through abstracts and deed books at Buchanan County Courthouse and chat with people who had family at the cemetery and maybe their relatives were caretakers, we soon come to find out that probably the origin of the King Hill Cemetery was it was a family burial ground. Peter S. Rudy made proof on his preemption right to the northwest quarter of Township 56, Section 5, Range 35, containing 163 acres on June 26, 1845, about 179 years ago. He and his wife, Amanda Thompson Rudy, married in 1843, and they had a son, George, who we've come to call Little George. And he died when he was only 5 months old, and on November 16, 1844. And he's buried in the Rudy Thompson Harrington family plot at the cemetery. And Peter Rudy himself, he died in 1854, and just a few weeks ago, this is newsflash, his gravesite was discovered. And the lady who found it is sitting right back there in the back row. His 2 times great-granddaughter, who lives in Colorado, paid us a visit in May. And there's several Rudy descendants that are still alive and around this area even. And her name is Janet, and she shared the story with us that Peter Rudy was going by horseback through his property, which included the cemetery at that time. And he was on his horse, but he fell from the horse in a creek, and he got a chill, as they said, and he died. And like I said, and now we know he's buried at the King Hill Cemetery. For sure we know. The oldest tombstone in the cemetery is dated March 20th, 1840. And we were talking about this earlier. Mount Mora has said that they are the oldest cemetery and that they were established in 1854. We didn't get in the city limits where King Hill Cemetery is until 1957. So I think that maybe that makes us the oldest cemetery now. So, but anyway, in 1868, the cemetery was first mentioned in a deed by Joseph A. Brown, who had owned the property after Peter Rudy. He sold 80 acres with the exception of 16.75 acres which was conveyed to Levi Jones and heirs and executors and administrators. And this will prove to be a sticking point down the road here. 45 years down the road, in 1913, shareholders and heirs forced a petition suit. Charlie Robertson, and sometimes he's also known as Robinson, son of John Harrington Robertson, and son-in-law, and his son-in-law, William Miles, bought the cemetery on the courthouse stairs at a sheriff's sale for $1,800. Robertson and Miles owned the cemetery and were caretakers for 36 years, and in 1950, they sold the cemetery for $1, and it became known as the New King Hill Cemetery Association. And it was established then, and that still exists to this day. On March 27th, 1868 is the day that I like to say that the Big 12 makes the Sweet 16. This is the day that Levi Jones and 11 others who were the owners of the first 16 shares of the cemetery. And there's 12 people, but the first people that owned it as the King Hill Cemetery, it was divided between these 12 people, but it was 16 shares. And then we have the stories behind the headlines. There are many articles in St. Joseph newspaper that tell the story of the cemetery. And we just highlighted a couple here that are probably some of the most noteworthy. Fire was probably one of our biggest and saddest times at the cemetery that destroyed the records to the cemetery. All the old records to the cemetery are all gone. We have no maps, and anything that is before 1899 is gone. So that's a big chunk that we don't know about. And any of the maps that we do have, they only are for the new section of the cemetery, which it still is an active cemetery today, and people can still be buried there. The other thing is vandalism and toppled tombstones has been our biggest culprit. And as you can see, vandals struck in, this one was in 1989, but it goes back for many years. Through the years, there's been different times. At that particular time, they had 53 tombstones knocked over. We met with a gentleman today from a local construction company, and fingers crossed he maybe will come in and help us upright. We have some huge tombstones that belong to the Hawley family. That's Hawley. So if anybody knows any of the Hawleys, get with us and let us know, because we would like to get those tombstones uprighted, but we're going to have to pay to get those done because they are beyond our scope and strength to get those done. Mother Nature has also taken a toll on the cemetery. As you can see, the old steps, and this says Robertson on here. It used to be here. It's took its toll. Weeds overtook things. Over on the far right-hand picture, there's several nameplates that are in threshold stones, is what those are called. And you can see that is in the Hawley, one of the Hawley sections in the cemetery. That we're finding those still all the time because those have been overgrown and covered up with ages. So on October 23rd of this past year, 2023, we established the nonprofit King Hill Cemetery Restoration and Preservation Association. Our mission is threefold: discover and reclaim, restore, renew, and preserve, and to memorialize and perpetuate the history of the cemetery and those interred there, and try to keep their memory sacred. There is so much history in that cemetery, and a lot of the families that are down there, and you'll see here a slide in a little while that shows so many names that you will recognize. They came with the plat purchase in 1838, and they're the history of our town. And so with that being said, I'll turn it over to Mike, and he'll take you through the next part.
Good evening. So this is our progress report, discover and reclaim. When we first started this,
honeysuckle is a very invasive species. And, the older section, which is on top of the hill, called the south side, there's not very many families that are still around here. So that doesn't get decorated very much, because most of those people have passed away and all the families are scattered. We only see about 3 groups of families up there. They're the Kirschners and ours, and there's a couple of them that decorate the graves up there throughout the years. If there's anything else, Mother Nature has reclaimed it. This is all the honeysuckle popping up. As you can see, the tombstones are sitting there. We're pushing back the honeysuckle and reclaiming it. Also, we're finding tombstones under the ground that have toppled. Some of the tombstones toppled from the standpoint that the base, we call it a keyway, because it's a tablet goes into a slot, all right? And that's the lowest soil up there. There's no rock. And so as time happens, sometimes the way that tombstone will start pushing that base a little bit, and Mother Nature with gravity will sit there and snap it off, and then it gets buried in the ground. You're seeing here, this obelisk here, and these two, and that one, were only ones above the ground when we first started reclaiming. We found the rest of them under the ground, and had to rebuild the keyways and then for them. Restore and preserve. 25 tombstones were repaired in 2023. We didn't start repairing tombstones until about August of last year, because we were still reclaiming, but Mother Nature took over so we can find where these graves are at. The average cost for fixing a tombstone if it's complete restoration is roughly $125. So as you can see, this one right here will replace this keyway had to be totally taken out. We have forms, we poured, that's about 11 bags of concrete sitting there to support that. And we use all the proper adhesives for marble tablets. So we're not using any marble stuff. There's a company called Atlas Preservation, and they put on a clinic just last week in Mount Laurel. They actually also push their products, because their products are designed for repair of tombstones in this vintage, so that the tombstone can be taken back and forth. If you use modern adhesives, like Gorilla Glue or something like that on it, you gotta take it back apart. That glue is gonna get into the actual pores of the tombstone itself, and you'll never be able to take it apart safely. You'll destroy part of the tombstone, take it apart. So, examples here are Julie Ann Dittemore, Adam Dittimore's 4th wife. He is actually buried in Bethel Cemetery. And William Jones, he's a patriarch of the Jones pioneer family, and father of James Jones, who was living very well. And so, the way we repair them is we have to replace the keyway. Once it's cured, we'll put the tablet in there, and we'll make sure it's all plumb, all right? It's got to cure, and then as you can see, we've got a tripod with a chain hoist on it. We lift up the tombstone and we put special made epoxy here to seal it up, and then we also will fill it in to try to cover up the crack and seal it up as best as possible. All right, Richard. That's also probably about for the cure times to sit there and happen.
And we have to haul all the products in. There's no running water there.
No electricity.
No electricity. So we haul everything in and make it on site.
I have a question. Okay, the thing in the tripod, you put the glue on and you set it down. How long do you have to keep it there? How long does it take for it to set up so that it's solid?
Let's see, so this is already solid. This was put in, and we actually will put support brackets into the ground, the 2x4s, supporting the ground and holding that in place. All right, so then this mortar cures. That's mortar mix right in there, curing. Once that's cured, which we generally let it sit for about a week, then this goes on top, and then we put clamps on it, and we have the clamps on it, and the glue will actually within about, depending on the temperature, the glue within actually about a couple hours will actually cure, and and hold it, but we actually will leave we take the clamps off, we leave the boards on, we have to screw other boards on there to hold that in place for at least 24 hours. And then we take it off. The only reason I don't leave the clamps up there is, I'm concerned about someone coming in there and deciding they want them more than I do. So, and that's an example of we talk about putting a wreath on there. There's a couple of wreaths that we put on the cemetery. This is the latest restoration. So this actually isn't in the very top of the cemetery. This is in what we call the west section. And the reason we did this is Dorothy Rennick, who is a distant cousin of ours, and is part of the divorce family, which is part of the original families on top there. This is her two-time great-grandfather? Is her great-grandfather. It's a marble obelisk. It was in the ground. And so Joseph DeVore was married to Rebecca English. Joseph was the son of Mary and John DeVore and grandson of Revolutionary War patriot John Davis, who is buried at that cemetery. He was noted to be the Platte Purchase Minister, or what has been called a circuit minister for Buchanan County and surrounding counties. Last week I approved Lisa Barber, Jeff Robertson, and myself reset and restored Reverend and Mrs. DeVore's tombstone. Now, we thought the top of this obelisk was missing something, like an acorn or some type of ornamental stuff on it, because it was buried in the ground. It was actually a little bit deeper than this. We had to get it back here because we had to first level the base up. There's no use putting it back on top if it's not level. So we had to raise it up and level it up. And then we had to gradually migrate the tombstone vertically over this way. And if you look at this carefully after we got it up and we started looking at it, and actually Lisa's the one that really pointed it out, it's a Bible. There was no acorn on top of it. That is the top of the tombstone of the Bible. So that's the first one we ever seen like that. It is. And this staining is what they call mineral staining because it was in the ground. And so there's a special chemical we'll put on there that will actually gradually try to lighten it up a little bit. It's non-destructive to the tombstone. We use D2, a lot of D2. Everything we do is actually non-destructive. This actually started off as our COVID project because we were stuck. We decided to go do something outside. So we watch a lot of YouTube on how to do this stuff. That's how we were 6 feet away from everybody, so that should be good. Replace and preserve. You saw a picture of the staircase earlier. Now that staircase a long time ago, I actually, you'll see later on, it has pictures of my two kids in it. And it was just so far gone, there was no way to repair it. As you can see up there, there's no way to fix that. And so the decision was made to replace the steps back to the original style, shape and style. Sandra and Wes Sarnowski, whose young grandson is buried in the east section of the cemetery, kindly stepped forward and donated their time. We got companies for donating supplies to rebuild the steps. We were able to save the original Robertson name so they could be installed back in as original. That is the original Robertson name that was installed in the steps a long time ago. Sacred to the memory of. For the past several years, we honored and remembered veterans buried at the Keeneville Cemetery on Memorial Day, Veterans Day, and Christmas Day. According to numerous newspaper articles dating back to the mid-1800s, there's a long-standing tradition to place flowers on the graves of decoration area for what we today call Memorial Day. Last year, we dedicated a new memorial marker for a Mexican War veteran, Edward S. Raymond. Currently, there are 105 veterans' graves that we've been identified. However, we're still finding more. We add to the list as veterans are buried. Our goal is to honor every veteran who is buried in Keeneville Cemetery. Just not at the top, just in the west, everyone on there. There's at least one veteran from every major war, starting with the Revolutionary War. War of 1812, Mexican War, Civil War, World War I, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, and Pearl. We have recently been told that William Thompson is a veteran of the Black Hawk War. Back to E.S. Raymond. This is a threshold stone right here, and this is what started the whole process. We found that in the ground just kind of barely sticking up. And then we started finding markers for the family plot. And as we kept on digging around, more research found that he was a documented Mexican War service veteran. His two-time great-granddaughter was located. The permission was obtained to get a military personal memorial marker. The paperwork was submitted to the VA and the marker was approved. The dedication ceremony with members from the SAR, DER, VFW, Marine Corps League, and the Raymond family and community members were participants. And this is our dedication of the marker. And that's her two-time great-granddaughter right here. Patriot Graves discovered. Honoring the War of 1812 service of two pioneers, settlers. James Lewis Hyde and John DeVores. Most recently discovered that J.L. Hyde and John DeVores, who happened to be buried only a short distance apart, served in the War of 1812. Hyde's grave has been on our radar this summer due to deterioration of the base in Tilton office. This is great. That's the base right there, his office. As you can see, it's deteriorating very rapidly. The tree stump was there, and we left that tree stump there, but the mowers wouldn't hit the office, or the base of it. That's not why it's deteriorating, it's just through time. We asked permission of the Hyde family to mark his grave with the War of 1812 service medallion. Both the Daughters of the War of 1812 and the War of 1812 Society of Missouri stepped forward and donated medallions and money for the restoration project. In the meantime, the War of 1812 service record of John DeVore was discovered. We originally had a basic tablet-style marker. Since 1939, the marker either deteriorated or was vandalized. Today, only a small fragment of this marker exists. Again, we asked the family descendants if we could have their permission to obtain a VA-issued marker for him. And this past week, the marker did show up, and we have it to be able to be installed. The grave marking ceremony for this is going to be, and Lisa has some flyers, October the 26th at 10 a.m. down there. And we're going to dedicate both 1812. Also, there also happen to be sons and daughters of patriots who fought in the Revolutionary War. We have a medallion for them also. So there's going to be a whole ceremony up there on top of the hill at that point in time. To give you an idea, the cost to repair his tombstone, right? We had to take out the whole base in here. There's 20 bags of concrete in there to rebuild that, support that obelisk. And our estimated cost of that right now, we're at about $290. So most of these things are less than that, but this is because of the obelisk and the weight. It's a lot more expensive. And we're lucky that we got donations to take care of that. Back to the Future. Vision the cemetery with a short video we'll call Back to the Future Then and Now. This footage is basically from 2015 to 2024. once again, we talked about the steps. That's what steps look like in about, let's see, Jim's probably about 5, so they're about 1987. That's what the steps look like originally at that point.
He was the young man flying the drone.
Oh, yeah.
And then the little boy, where it says the future over there, that's another generation of Robertson. That's his son.
Yeah, and my note on here is I wonder what John Robertson thought of his 5-time great grandson flying a drone over the West.
Different world.
Yes. So the vision was coming soon. It's here. A new gate and fencing was set to be installed by Memorial for winning, and it happened. That's the old gate right there. There's the new entrance. It is really here. The design was a vision of J.L. Robinson Rocking. J.L. and King Hill Restoration and Preservation Association worked with Perka Building Frames of South of St. Joe on Memorial Day weekend of 2024 started installing. J.L. and past volunteer promoter Gary Lewis worked to obtain generous donations from the King Foundation, Southside Progressive Group, and other individuals to make this happen. A few minor design elements are being ironed out, and then the job will be complete. Family members and friends of the cemetery are pleased with the new gate. It's a nice addition to it. Volunteers are the lifeblood of restoration and preservation of the cemetery. Day-to-day maintenance is a job of the New King Hill Cemetery Association. Doug Shepard is the president. He also serves as the director of the board of the King Hill Cemetery Restoration and Preservation Association. We're fortunate to have a variety of groups that volunteered for the past 3 years. Benton High School and Central High School seniors came to work for Senior Day of Service. We had last few years, we had over 25 people from the 2 high schools combined come to work on Senior Day
Each year.
each year. A student from Missouri Western College, Roger Collins, worked all last summer with. You know what he's gonna get into. Members of the St. Joe chapter, Daughters of American Revolution, William C. Forum Chapter of Liberty, Missouri volunteer. We deeply appreciate everyone's help. If you know someone, or if you are one, that would like to help, please get in contact with us. Your help is deeply needed. Questions and answers. This is your, yes, sir.
You mentioned Gary Lewis a few minutes ago. As I remember this, Gary's got an ancestor about 10 generations back that was a sister of Meriwether Lewis. Is that right? And you know where she's buried there?
The Lewis family that was there, is there. Yes, there is a Lewis ancestor there. They are just descendants of, Meriwether Lewis. It's not a direct descendancy. And
It's not a sister,
No.
it's a sister-in-law.
because they were, I believe the way the story goes, and I'm not 100% up on this, so I'll just try to sum it up in a nutshell. I believe those ladies, I believe it was a daughter and two daughters and a mother, and I believe they were down at the hotel, the old historic hotel. No, the one that where Lincoln talked. Patey
Edgar
House.
House.
Patey House.
Edgar
They were
House.
in there, and I believe that they contracted some type of illness and died, and that's why they're buried at the King Hill Cemetery. But they are there, yes. They're in that old section.
So are they sisters or aunts or what relation?
I'm not for sure what the descendancy is, but they are, because I don't believe that Meriwether Lewis was actually married. So it would have to be somewhere through their line, but I'm not sure what the descendancy is, to be honest with you. So I
And you
will
said
say-
they were buried in the old section?
Yes.
When you go in the main gate, is the old section to the west?
You come up the South Road,
South Road.
you come up the South Road, and you get up to the top of the hill, there's another little road that goes crossways.
Yes.
And you come on up that way a little bit, and and then before you get to the stairs, there's a gray marker that's all there by itself.
There is a marker there.
Yes,
turning
there's just
on.
one marker.
Mhm.
And I believe this, Lisa, do you remember, does it have all three of their names on it?
I don't remember.
I don't remember either, off the top of my head.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Any other questions?
You said several groups purchased the cemetery. This is probably a dumb question. Was it purchased as a money-making project, or why would somebody buy a cemetery?
Well, like I said, I think it started out, from all we can gather from the deeds and everything like that, it started out as family burial ground. And then as these family members, and actually a lot of them intermarried, and somebody decided, I guess at the time, that they would maybe want to make money off of it, I don't know. But then they sold shares, and they did at some point in time, like I said, a lot of the records are gone. The records that we do have are very primitive, but they would talk about, that the cemetery made a little bit of money. Back then it wasn't a not-for-profit. But what happened was that through the years, when this was originally set up, it was set up that these shares would be, when the original shareholder died, it would be disseminated to the family members, the heirs. Well, what happened is all these original shareholders started passing away, and you have somebody like Adam Dittemore, who had over 20-some kids. Guess what? It all just kept dividing out, and then he had children pass away, so then that went to his grandchildren. So by the time it was all said and done, there was hundreds of people. I mean, I guess I should bring the list sometimes. There was hundreds of people that this money had to be divided for. And because there wasn't that much money there, they forced it into petition suit. And some of them only got maybe like 12 cents or something like that. I mean, so when, after they forced the petition suit, then they said, okay, we'll just sell it on the courthouse steps. And that's when Charlie Robertson bought it. Good question.
I have another question. I noticed on really old tombstones, and I saw evidence of it on some of your slides, there's this crusty lichen, whatever it is, growth on it that almost obliterates the words. You can't hardly read it. How do you get rid of that stuff?
D2.
And just, do you use a brush?
Sometimes we do. But you spray it on and you let it set, and the longer it sets, the whiter that it will get. And actually, Lisa, once you field that question, she learned a little bit more about that last week.
Well, I think we clean too much. I think it's part of our problem, especially on the marble ones, because it begins to what we call sugar. It feels like a sugar cube. Okay,
Oh.
it's not a polished marble anymore. Okay, and that lichen, we were scraping it off with plastic scrapers. That's not accurate. That's not what we should be doing. Because if you do it on a dry mold or the lichen, it opens up those pores and just creates more havoc. Spray it down with the D2, let that soak in, then we can scrape it off. There's two ways you can use D2. You can spray and scrub a bit, you can spray it and leave it. Water actually reactivates D2. So every time it rains, if there's D2 on it, it reactivates. In the cool mornings when there's dew, it reactivates. That's why the longer it sits, month after month, it just gets wider and wider and wider. It's eating and pulling all that algae out of those pores. It's not a degreaser or anything like that in a separate environment. But yes, nylon brushes, only brushes, no metal brushes, no wire brushes. Brush less, more water. Spray it and leave it.
And D2 is recommended, it's what they use like at Arlington and the Veterans Administration, and that's what is recommended by all the experts, is to use D2.
So what are the different, besides marble, what other materials are used for tombstones?
Granite,
Granite,
just
slate.
granite,
concrete?
Actually, there's a metal that they use, what was the metal?
White
Zinc?
bronze, it's full of white bronze, this is zinc.
Yeah.
Some of the old tombstones that I'm thinking of look almost like gray concrete.
There are some people that, we have some down there that were self-made, but there's several families, if they couldn't afford something, they just made their own out of concrete. We've got brass ones, we've got one that was so covered up with brush, and we were just absolutely amazed after we uncovered it, that after all these years, we have no idea how long it's been there, but probably at least back in the 30s and 40s. You have the cemeteries, or the funeral home state have below the 10 markers.
Oh,
Well, this is still a 10 marker, but you can tell it went through the fire because it's rusted, so it had to be back in the 30s and 40s. But somehow, miraculously, through all this brush, through all this digging, it's got glass in it, an actual glass, and it's not shattered. It's still intact. I don't know how it survived that long, but it has. Unfortunately, you keep reading and underneath it, but anyway.
A good place to see all the different types of gravestones actually at Mount Olive. Because they have a lot of the different ones that have different styles of it.
Anything else? Go ahead, Jen.
How many Robertsons in the cemetery?
That one section of this,
There's 2 rows there. There's some of them moved out.
What?
Out on their own. Some of the Robertsons, they were related to the DeBoers, which is, Dorothy and Helen's family. And back in 1949, their grandfather, right? Your grandfather or your dad?
My dad.
Their dad, and some of the members of the Rock, and a great uncle of Mike's, got upset because the cemetery wasn't being taken care of. So they exhumed some of the Robertson bodies, and they are out, 3 of them are out in Memorial Park, and how many from your family? How many from your family did they move out there? Your grandma and
Yeah.
your dad?
My uncle and my grandpa.
So we know of at least 6 from their family that were moved from the family plot, out there. But there is, gosh, there's Robertsons on both sides of the road. There's a story about that, but we won't go into that tonight. So, but there's several down there, so. Any other questions?
Yes, just a couple of questions. I know, so you were talking about the, kind of the history of how the cemetery came to be. Is the Cemetery Association, not the one that was started last year, but the association, is it now set up as a nonprofit, or is it still privately held?
it's a cemetery, cemeteries can be, they're necessarily they're nonprofit, they're in different classification.
Like a benevolent association?
Yeah, something like that. Every statute has a different thing for actually the cemeteries themselves.
Yeah.
And so, the day-to-day operation and maintenance is done by Doug Shepherd and that association. Our focus is restoration and preservation.
Got it. And my second question, I'm curious about your logo, that tree.
Roger
Roger
designed
designed
it.
that
Oh,
for us.
really?
But there is a story behind it. Up on top of the hill, where we very first started working, one of the first things that Mike addressed is there's 2?
It was
There's 2 pine trees up there. And they were so overgrown and full of bad worms and all that, and we trimmed all those off. And once we got it trimmed off, the whole Moore family is underneath those trees. And the kind of cool story about that was that, I looked up his will, afterwards, and he was the only person that we found thus far that left a special note in his will that he wanted the cemetery taken care of. And And so we thought, okay, we'll listen to you, we hear you. And, so we said, well, we wanted to put the pine tree in the whole tombstone. And so I told Roger what I wanted, and he came up with it. He designed our website, and, it was part of your school project, right?
You know, like, interactive design group, we just, the design taught by Matt Petford that we went through.
So he designed that for us.
Well, thank you all for your passion and caring for this sacred ground. That's what it takes. Thank you.
We enjoy it. And we enjoy, we thank all those Valleys, they have family there, and they come out and help, we appreciate that, so.
And we're starting to see more and more people take ownership of the cemetery, so, it's gonna take that community to keep this thing going, because Jerry and I will not be here forever. So, our goal is to have this association develop forward to keep it an ongoing thing of repairing and keeping that part up. And it's not a lack of jobs out there.
I have lots of questions. I'm assuming that some of the tombstones were completely buried?
Yes.
So how do you find them? Do you just go around poking things in the ground?
We have a special probe that we use. And, we just go through, we kind of, after you're there for a while, the lady who was part of the Rudy family came, like I said, in May. And she was standing there with Lisa and I, and she says, they're talking to me. I just know they're talking to me. But anyway, yeah. But you kind of get a feel of where things are at, and you kind of can tell by the look on the ground where things are. There is one lady from some of you may know her, Bandy, who is down at the Genealogy Society, and she knows how to divine. And she's taught me how to do it, and she's taught me a lot about looking at the landscape and how to look at things, and sometimes you can just tell where there's especially this time of year. I was telling Lisa, when the weather gets hot and the grass starts to die off, a lot of times we can start seeing depressions and things like that. And sometimes it's just a gut hunch, and I'll say, Lisa, go poke over there. Some we found just by accident, so.
Yeah, I tell people the cemetery is talking to us, and I'll give you an example. Last week I was sitting
There is a straitjacket underneath.
What I mean there is, it's not so much that little clues we pick up on. I was up there mowing this last week, and I saw this little brown spot out there, this big, in the ground. And I said, okay, that's not normal. I mean, it's not. And so I told Lisa about it. I said, go check that out. And sure enough, it's a threshold stuff, not threshold, it's a keyword for a tombstone. So we haven't found the probe ground to find it, but now we know, okay, there's probably a tombstone laying in the ground right near this. So then we'll start poking around it. That's what I mean, it talks to you, because we're up there so much that little subtle clues that we see in the ground will pop out that we know that if you're not there a lot, you won't pick up on.
And so many of these family plots, back in the beginning, had cornerstones, and they had pipes.
Right.
That were
There aren't any up there, Mel?
They had and I don't know, maybe you guys know more about this than we do. We were told that there was a caretaker many years ago that got kind of frustrated mowing around things. And so, no, it wasn't him. It wasn't him. I don't know, it wasn't him. But, I think it was longer ago than that. And, he just decided on his own to take all those out and he sold them all for scrap value, is what we were told.
But the concrete.
But the
part is
concrete
still there.
corner posts are more than 9 times than not there. And one of the exciting things for us, and it doesn't take much to entertain us, but one of the exciting things for us is when we were working on the Hyde Monument, we could see evidence of one cornerstone. And I told Lisa, I said, there's gotta be maybe some more around here. So I said, go out there about 8 foot, because we're finding that, and this is where Mike says it starts talking to us, is historically, a lot of those corner posts have been about 8 foot apart. And a lot of the graves up there are 4 foot by, back in the day, they were probably 4 by 6 or 4 by 7. The 4 by 8. I think now jail, what do you say, have to be 4 by 10 or whatever, to accommodate for the vaults. But, anyway, so we went out about 8 foot, right? And the short version of the story is we found all 6 corner posts to the Hyde family plot on top. And as we were doing that, there was a keyway. And Lisa says, I'm gonna poke over here and see what I can find. She discovered a Hyde, J.L. Hyde's daughter-in-law, who the Hyde family didn't know was there. They knew she had died, but they didn't know where she was buried. And it was Anlip Hyde, who donated Hyde Park. It was his first wife. And so her tombstone was broken 2 pieces. It was perfectly intact otherwise. So they were able to put it back together, fix the keyway, put it back up, and now it has pride of place next to J.L. Hyde.
It was the first thing I ever probed.
Wow.
It was the first time I ever probed.
Hot.
And she hasn't stopped.
Well, it is sort of like treasure hunting.
Yeah, well,
But you gotta do it with care. And that's why also when anybody comes up to volunteer, we tell them, if you find something, leave it where it is till we can investigate. Because if they start moving things around on us, we could lose critical artifacts. And, so it's, we joke some, but it's, we take it very serious. Because we wanna try to preserve whatever we can to the back the way it was.
So Joel and I were up there, yesterday, and, he's been working on that top east side, some of those smaller stumps. He's being very, very careful, but it's, I know there's graves way back in there.
There is.
So should we be probing before we start digging on this? I mean, most of the ones he's taken out have not been very rooted, he's just flipping them out. You know?
Yeah, it's probably flipping out the,
Honeysuckle
honeysuckle ones
ones,
that we
yeah.
spray and cut and stuff like that.
Yeah, and then I picked up all that flower trash that was down that hill too, but I need to put a sign up saying don't throw those.
Use little plastic ones to start off with, and to make sure that there's nothing, there. You can get you, one of the things that we use is just, with plastic, you can get them out of the farm store, but they're, electric fence posts that are rubbered on the top, and they have a spike on them about like that. And that's what we use sometimes, just to, it's so if you go down, I don't go back that far, you can tell if you're going.
But I mean, some of these roots go way farther down than that, so I mean, he can't dig it out pretty easily, he's not.
Well, and the other thing, just, we appreciate you doing it, is we're talking to the conservation department, and we're trying to get a grant from them to eradicate all the honeysuckle up there, so we actually kind of backed off on doing that manual labor and working on the tombstones right now.
Right.
Because I'm waiting to hear from the conservation department, because if they're gonna do it for us, why should I do it?
Right, but the part that's already cleared
Right.
down, that, we
Yeah.
thought if you wanted to mow that, we could.
Yeah, and that's the idea right now until, and I'm open for all different suggestions, but if you go up on top and you go straight towards the fence, it's fairly flat up there. The idea of that will be cleared off, and we call it Lisa's Corner, and we're gonna put grass to go back up in there.
Or clover.
Well, probably grass there because it's flat, so we'll go that. But where it gets steep, the idea is to put, right now, put clover in there, or if the conservation comes in with something else, because it would be too steep to mow.
How is that coming along with the conservation, have you heard anything?
I talked to them, we had a guy out yesterday looking at it, and,
They're in the process of getting bids.
yeah. Because their fiscal year is starting pretty soon, so they've been out there, this is the third time a person's been up there and talking to them.
I just worry about him getting a bid from somebody that's not gonna care about, cause like Lisa said, there's way down in there, there's tombstones.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and matter of fact, when I was there talking to the guy walking through there, he says, okay, yeah, we can't bring in heavy equipment, so that's gonna have to be, handed down and stuff like that, and so, you know, and the oversight is where we're very paramount, and we're gonna be overseeing what's going on. And, because, like I said, there's certain things that we find, okay, wait a minute, stop, you know, get this, but, if you're just very careful going underneath the stops, we call them stops, and behind something, a lot of those, the swallows pop out real easy, because it's all dead now.
And what do you want us to do with them?
Just make a pot.
Okay.
We gotta.
That's what we do.
Yeah, just make a pile, cause we'll haul, that's, sometimes what the high schoolers do is haul all that stuff out of there. You know, how many trees we know, brush we haul out?
I think it was 13.
13.
I thought maybe 12, yeah. Two truckloads, trucks
Trucks running constantly.
with trailers.
Yeah, so we have on the north side down there, a brush pile. We collect all that stuff out.
Teresa, this may ease your mind or it may not. I've been digging those stubs out, pretty much all year. Back in the very top part by that fence line. And I've only once found anything, and it was a keyway. You will hear and feel a difference when you put your shovel down. You know, if you hear it, if you feel that shovel start to slide, you know you've come across something.
You also hear it with the ding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They just back off. But, and we're finding stuff solely by getting that ground clutter off, raking all those leaves up, getting all those sticks out of the way. That we're actually finding things up there, and there's probably a lot. It's just some of that, you know, right there in that middle section, where there were wooden crosses, which are all gone. There's stuff there.
Yeah. We just all find the pile of, it looks like a homeless
Yeah.
person.
Yeah.
Did we get rid of it, or did we?
We told Doug about it.
Oh.
That's under his
That's his
umbrella.
purview. Well, we were actually thinking about taking it, but while we were there, someone was visiting a grave just below that, and so we just decided to start.
We told him about it, we thought that, because you never know what somebody leaves at a cemetery. And a friend of ours who has another cemetery close by, he had something suspiciously buried in his cemetery, so I thought it was best to go check that out, because
Right.
that's in the new part, so we checked that out. You never know what you're gonna get left.
Well, South End sadly has lots of homeless people right now.
It's everything.
The park and all the Wheelerland Park and,
That's everywhere. It's not here. Yes, sir.
I think you're related to J.L. Robertson.
Just a little bit.
Wait. Do you like?
John Rudd was on the city council, and I know J.L.'s a descendant of him, which make you related to John